Now let's bring out the cast and creative minds behind Vampire Academy. Please welcome to the stage showrunner, executive producer, director, and writer Julie Plec. Showrunner, executive producer, and writer Marguerite McIntyre. And your cast, he plays Dmitry Belikov. Please welcome to the stage Kieran Moore. She's your Rose Hathaway, Cece Stringer. Please bow down for Vasilisa Dragomir. It's Daniela Nieves. And he's Christian Ozera. It's Andre Day Kim. Welcome to Comic-Con, everyone.
Thank you.
So, honestly, there was so much to unpack from that first look, but I want to start all the way at the beginning. Julie and Marguerite, you've spent over a decade in the world of vampires already, with Vampire Diaries, the originals, and Legacies. So what inspired you? What inspired you to jump back into the genre with Vampire Academy?
So, I read these books, the whole book series, back in, I think I want to say like 2007 or 2008, on a nice little vacation while I was working on a show called Kyle XY, starring this lady here, which, by the way, was my first Comic-Con. And I loved the books, and back then nobody was making this kind of television, and certainly nobody really gave a crap about the kind of television I wanted to make yet. Certainly no one was like knocking on my door to say, just bring us whatever. But then, in 2020, somebody did knock on my door and say, hey, what if you could make any show that you've never had a chance to make, what would it be? And the answer was Vampire Academy. And the response was, great, let's go do it. And that was Universal Television and Peacock, and they instantly said yes. I thought they might be a little bit like, are you sure? Like, more vampires? But no, they were happy. And so then I placed the call to my beloved friend and brilliant writer, formerly known as Sheriff Forbes.
And how is Vampire Academy going to be different from what fans have seen on Vampire Diaries, originals, and Legacies?
Well, for one, you've just seen 20 minutes or 16 minutes or so, and for anybody who's fans of the other shows, I think that just the look of this show is so singularly unique. It's certainly nothing that I've ever made before, not in a place I've ever shot before, not in a world that I've ever tried to design or tell stories in before. So just that alone makes it a really special piece. But also, we're telling a story about the world that we live in today, and I'll let the smart one to my left pick up from there.
Well, I was with Julie when she read those books. We were on a little baby vacay during Kyle XY, and she was like, these are really good books. It was before she'd even read Vampire Diaries. And I read them, and I liked them, but I didn't really remember them as deeply as she did. And when she came to me and said, hey, Julie tells it differently.
No, I said, hey, you want to do those great books about vampires? She's like, no. Why would I do another vampire show?
Which isn't really technically true. I think she's being a little dramatic. But listen, anybody who has seen the difference between what Vampire Diaries was and what Originals was and what Legacies was, all wonderful shows with really different tones, would be really dumb to think that Julie Plec couldn't do it again in a different form. And when I went back into those books, I realized, I had loved them, really loved them. And then I said, oh, and now I know why now. It's about a class system that is unsustainable, that is falling apart, that is unfair. There is regime change. There is real struggle in that land. And I was like, well, that is familiar. And there's a way that we can all sort of understand the pressures that these two beautiful young women are under, being from different parts of society, and a society that doesn't really want them to be best friends and doesn't want them to be who they are to each other. So I was like, I get it. I want in on this. And then it was the joy of saying, what's the version for us? Like, we can go anywhere. We can do anything. We were so lucky. Our partners in this said, kind of do what you want. And we got to go shoot it in Spain and make this image of it, which is unique. And also Rochelle Mead's books have different vampire rules, which also made it unique. So it was really, really a fun new world to play in.
And when it comes to adapting beloved book series, there's always a tricky fine line with how much you want to stay true to the story and true to the books versus how much you want to make it your own. And since we've already seen a version of Vampire Academy on the big screen, which, again, we're not going to talk about, how did you approach adapting these books for this series?
For us, whenever you sit down to tell a story, the first thing you do is you put all the ideas you have up on the equivalent of a big mental whiteboard. And when you're adapting a show, all those cards that are going up on your whiteboard are cards of moments that you loved so much in the show, in the books as you read them. Our writer's room whiteboard, even though it was a Zoom room and a theoretical board, was filled with thousands of story ideas and character traits and lines of dialogue and pieces of mythology before we even had an idea of our own. And we very early on made it clear to ourselves and to the room that our job here was to preserve the things that we loved about the books when we read them, so that we were staying true to the story and to the characters in the world that Rochelle had built, and not forgetting to dramatize all the incredible, amazing moments along the way. So then we had to decide, all right, well then what decisions do we make as storytellers who need to structure this series, not to mention the first season. And the very first change came in how we began the story. The movie began the story, so I believe the way the books began the story, when we set out to do that, and then all of a sudden realized, but all this stuff that happened on page -10 of the book as backstory, all these memories about Lissa and her family and what happened between Lissa and Rose on the night of that fateful car accident and who Sonia Karp was, like those are stories that are begging to be told in real time. And that started our decision to start the story in a different place and find our way back to all the tent poles of the books along the way.
Mm-hmm. And who here on the cast has read the Vampire Academy books?
Can I have a show of hands? Sorry, I'm a really loud person. Can you raise your hand if you did read the books? All right! Woo! Sick. All right, cool.
So, Cece, what about the books made you fall in love with them?
They were my sister's books, actually, and she was obsessed with it. So I stole them, and I was like a young teen, and I read them, and it was kind of like the Twilight era, so I already really enjoyed that stuff, and I just loved them, best friendship between two really strong women, and forbidden lovers, and it's sexy and it's exciting, and there's action and everything that you need, really. And as a young girl, I just loved it. I just dug my claws into it and I just didn't let it go. So getting the audition for this and then getting to be a part of it is so cool. As a fan, it's so cool.
And for every cast member here, what excited you the most about bringing your character to life?
I think, kind of going back on what you were talking about, I read the first book in 2 days as soon as, I realized there was a book series. And I was obsessed, and I absolutely knew that this was a story that needed to be told. And the fact that at the core of it is this female friendship. I know in my personal life, my female friendships are what really drives my life. So just having that and knowing that I could be a part of that really, really excited me.
So I kind of had the similar experience where after booking the audition, I read the first book, and I thought to myself, maybe I'm going to play Christian. I'm going to be more focused on Christian parts. But then I started reading the book, and I'm like, oh my God, Dimitri Rose just kissed. Just do it. Oh my God, so much waiting.
That's him on set as well.
And I was like, I'm just hooked now. So I just became a fan, which is awesome. I think Christian is such a layered, complex soul, someone who could hold a lot of resentment in his life, but at the same time has this sliver of hope that he keeps in, and I just thought that was so beautiful, and I couldn't wait to portray that on screen.
I think for me, I saw the movie in the cinemas, which is an unlocked memory.
2015.
Yeah, in my last year of high school, I must admit it was just an unlocked memory when the audition came through. I was like, I really want to do this. This sounds cool. This guy sounds really intricate. So I did my little bit of research and was like, oh, whoa, I did see this movie. And then I read the book and I was like, whoa, this guy absolutely terrifies me. He's held with such respect and cherish. But I think that's, in essence, what drew me to him. It was like, this guy is loved, and for me, it's the intrigue. The interest of what we get to do in this show is we don't just get to see Dimitri on the outside. As the story goes on, it's all about what's underneath this discipline, this...
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see some vulnerability, who knows. But yeah, no, I just thank you to these guys for giving me the opportunity and for you guys for keeping open-minded. And I hope you enjoy the story that we're going to tell.